Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to have you here. So glad that you are joining me, whatever time you're watching this. Adding in my last color, this is a Michael Harding paint, Bright Yellow Lake. You could use a cadmium yellow light, cadmium yellow lemon. Either one of those is going to work. I have an 8x10 gesso board up here. You can use any size that you like, but what I recommend is starting about this size or smaller. If you get much bigger when you're just starting out, it's harder to really cover that. And if you get too much smaller than a 6x8, it might be harder for you to fit it all in. But whatever size you're using, I will show you how to get this fit, to get it fit into whatever panel you're going to be using. So we're going to go through that. But this is an 8x10 panel. I have it set up in what's called the portrait mode, or the portrait position. If you turn it on its side, it then becomes landscape. And with this setup that I have here, you could actually do either. You could do either a landscape mode or a portrait mode, either one. Okay, so let me go through with what I have. I have lead white, which you can use titanium white. I have yellow lake, I think mixed with some cadmium yellow, lemon. This is cadmium yellow deep, cadmium red light. This is my equivalent of alizarin crimson, transparent oxide red, ultramarine blue. My raw umber that I love to start paintings with, and bone black, which most manufacturers call it ivory black. And that is more of a historical name than a true name. Right now it's made, the pigment is made from charred animal bone, not charred ivory, but historically it was made from ivory. Now it's made from bones. This pile here is a mixture of, about a 1-to-1 mixture of Wilson's Medium and Oleo Gel, both from Rublev. And I've mixed that in with the raw umber, and we are going to start playing. Are you ready? So there's a couple different ways of starting this. One of those ways is to do the thirds. That's one of my favorite ways, is to do the thirds. We've talked about this previously. I am not precious about it at all. You can also mark off where your center is. Now there's a quote-unquote rule in art, don't put anything right in the center. That's one of those rules that I learned about, and I said, you know what, sometimes it does need to be right in the center. So this is one of those rules that I consider to be optional. Okay, now let's get my Prospex tool out here. You can see this. We use it in a couple of different ways. One of them is that we can measure what is about 2/3, and that is about about 2/3. So we want our tallest object or largest object to be no bigger than this, and then it's just a matter of finding out or figuring out where do we want to go and place this. Since we did decide upon an isosceles triangle, triangle compositional structure that we talked about in the previous video, I want my vase to be about in the middle, maybe a little bit over here, but mostly I do want it to be close to the middle. So this X marks the spot is going to help me with figuring out about where that is going to be. Since it is so tall, and I do want to have that size difference. I think that is very pleasing to have something really tall and thin and more angular, and then something short and round, and having softer curves. I think that this makes a very pleasing combo. So I do want to have it rather tall. So we just need to figure out where on here do we want to place it. Now we also want to keep in mind that about 1/8 of an inch on all the sides are going to be covered by whatever frame we're going to put on there. The other thing I like to keep in mind is breathing. So I know that these objects here in my Still Life setup are not alive, but something magical happens when you put it into oil paint. And then if you do it right and you do it well, it's like the painting comes alive. And it's the only way I know how to talk about it. So I want to have enough space down below, enough space above, that there's enough room around it for it to breathe. Okay, so especially at the top, I don't want to be cutting it off. I don't want to be getting right up here. So I want to make sure I've got enough room for it. So typically what I may err on, unless I have something at the bottom, which I don't have anything hanging off the bottom. If you look for my S composition painting later on in this month, you'll see I do have a doily that's going to be hanging off of the bottom of, or hanging off the table edge. Then I'm going to want to put something a little bit higher up because I want to have enough room to show that. But I don't have that here. So I'm going to typically err on the side of it being a little bit lower, right about here, because I want to have plenty of room around the top of that vase for it to go breathe. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you have, let's say your last, let's do this. Say this is about as wide as what we're wanting it to be. Okay. Whenever we're looking at that, we can have the edge. It's better on the viewer to have the ending edge closer to the end here, because we're getting to the end, and more empty space here for the eye. It's easier for the eye to enter the painting. So I may want to kind of err a little bit on this side and have it a little bit over here, so we can kind of make it here and here is what I'm kind of thinking about. So then that might put me having my my vase, which if you guys don't know, I'm from Arkansas. It's not a vase, it's a vase. That's going to have me putting my vase right about here. So it's important to think about this ahead of time. Where is everything going to fit? About what size is it going to be? And where do I want it and why? So those are some of the things that I take into account when I'm trying to go place something. But I really do think about breathing. Is there enough room below? Is there enough room above? Now, one of the things I've noticed myself doing is that I'm cutting it too close to the bottom. I'm not giving it enough room to breathe on the bottom. So I want to correct that. But I've noticed with myself that when I correct it, I overcorrect it. So what I want to do is I want to think about that, and I want to say, okay, I don't want to overcorrect it, right? But I do want to bring it up just a little bit more than maybe what I was thinking about. So maybe right about here. And just kind of getting a feel about how does that feel there. Do I feel like I have enough room here? Do I feel like I have enough room here? The other thing we can do is we can say, okay, well, that's 2/3. That's the most it needs to be. You know, I can always shrink it just a little bit. So that is another idea. But I think I like this size. I like where I've got it. I like this because I want there to be a really big size difference between the vase and the tangerines or clementines or whatever you want to call those. Okay, so let's see here. I don't want to get in your way. And I'm going to do a mark for the top here and a mark for the bottom. Now this is the bottom of the vase. It's not the bottom of, let me move that up just a little bit. Not the bottom of the table edge. Okay, so this is my eraser anytime I want to erase anything. Now all this that I have drawn here so far is going to be underneath a layer of paint. And that's one of the things that you need to be thinking about is what are you sure is going to be covered up with paint? Really doesn't matter, you know. Did I get this perfect? No, it really matters not. But when it does matter is could your stroke be the last stroke in that area? And you need to be aware of that and keeping in mind that could be what is still showing through. Now, if you are an artist that's going to come back to it and paint it multiple times, not so much of a worry for you when you're first starting out. I'm a alla prima painter, meaning I paint all in one sitting. So I do have to keep that in mind because a lot of places I'm not going to come back and hit a second, a third, or a fourth time. It's going to be a lot of areas on the painting I'm going to paint once and move on. But all of that you see right here is I know, going to be covered up. So need to be keeping that in mind if you are an alla prima painter. So the other thing is I'm looking at this and going, do I have room to put those two? And I'm like, no, I don't really. So what I'm going to do is move this over. And that is what is so wonderful about this stage here is that, look at that, I've just drawn a little bit and I'm like, okay, just move it over a little bit, move it over a little bit. And I think maybe move it over just a little bit more. So let's go and do a little bit more erasing. Okay, so we're about roughly right. That feels better. I can't explain that any better other than it just feels better. So now that we've got this about the place where we're going to put it, let's do the envelope drawing. So we've got the envelope and we're going to have that to hit right about there. And I'm going to say that is going to come down just a little bit and also going to come down just a little bit. Okay. So that is our envelope drawing, really, really simple. It just gives us that overall idea, where is everything going to be going? And getting that in there. Okay. So we can do a little bit more and just kind of get this set up a little bit more, and we have this nice curvature here, and then it's going to come out to maybe a little bit lower than that, and then it comes back down. So we've got that, where does it, that edge, and we've got this basic shadow. One of the things about shadows is that the shadow mimics the outside edge. So you want to keep that in mind. Now we've got two of the clementines, and we're going to have one that's going to be sitting on its little bottom. Actually, I think it's sitting where the top part of it, where it was attached to the tree, that's what it's sitting on. there's not really a cast shadow onto the one that is on its side, but we do have plenty of form shadow. So if you need to, if some of these words that I'm using are sounding foreign to you, like form shadow, cast shadow, values, and I also talked about shadows, is last month. So I've created a collection of for each month and each focus. And the focus for April is values. So you can go search it by a collection of values, or just go search, go back in the timeline. Now I'm just gonna, one of the things that does help me is to overpaint the shadows, meaning that I get them a little bit bigger than what they really need to be. It's kind of a habit that I've gotten into. It really kind of works. And there's a little bit of shadow here at the top there, because it's the light is coming from here, and so there's a little bit of shadow right in here. Then we get a nice shadow in through, a nice light source into here. Okay. And then the other thing to think about at this early stage is, actually we probably should have already thought about it, is what is the color, or what is the color and the value of our background going to be. So this is blue and white, and this is going to be a really bright orange. So what I already have in here is I have a light, so this is going to be very light, have a bright. These, the clementines are brightly colored. And what I don't have is I don't have a dark and a dull. And so the dull is going to be the background. So I know I'm going to paint the background a dull color. I can do a umber color, a black color. One of the colors I love is doing a low chroma or a dull dark green. That works on so many different types of paintings. But I think I'm going to do something even duller, really colorless is what I think I'm going to do. So I'm going to do very dark of a raw umber, a black, and a white mixed in, and do a basically a colorless background. So then the next thing I need to think about is how dark is the background going to go. I could go anywhere from medium, kind of a middle value, all the way up to really dark, or a chiaroscuro painting. But since I know I want to make these really brightly colored, I know that because that's what I want to go and do, I don't want to go full chiaroscuro, because that's where we focus on just light and dark. So since I know I want to have this bright color, I want this to be a real focal point. And well, you know what? I'm going to change that. So I think I am going to make this a chiaroscuro painting, and I'm going to make this white vase the focal point. And so these are going to be supporting actors. So I'll still make them orange. They'll still be a bright orange. They're still going to serve as my brights, but they're not going to serve as really as bright as in another concept. Another concept would be that you could paint the background a middle tone and really make the orange color of the tangerines your focal point, and really make them bright and just stand out in color. So there's so many times when you're looking at these different paintings and you're thinking about how you want to do it. There's oftentimes more than not, there is no one right answer. There's a lot of different options. But what you do need to do is you need to think about what is your concept, get it there on your panel, and you need to keep the concept in your mind and paint it all the way through. So my concept is chiaroscuro. So I know where I'm going with this now, and we're going to follow through with it. So if you will stay tuned to the next video, I'm going to be adding in color to the shadows, and I'm also going to be painting in the background. All right, see you over there.